Hello, I'm Lottie Unwin and welcome to something a bit different. We're launching a new mini-series called The Marketing Hustle Hot Takes, where we're ditching the filter and diving into the real, sometimes controversial conversations happening in marketing right now. I'm with James Hickson, who has built Brand Hackers with me, and he is going to be my co-host for 6 hot chats. I can't wait to hear what you think. This is very much an experiment. We all know the struggle, spending time, budget and creativity on a campaign, only to wonder, will this actually land? Well, this is where Sticky Beak comes in. Sticky Beak is a game changer for consumer testing, which I'm so passionate about, helping you make your marketing more effective by getting real consumer feedback on your brand's campaigns and products quickly and affordably. So why Sticky Beak? You can get fast, reliable insights in 48 hours or less. Testing won't blow the budget. It costs hundreds, not thousands. You can reach your target audience globally. You can test everything from logos to taglines, messaging, creative, packaging, promotions, and more. And I really believe in marketing data-driven decisions, and you'll hear me wang on about the power of insights. So I'm very proud of this partnership. Visit stickybeak.co/marketing hustle to book a free 30-minute strategy call and discover how they can help. Plus, you get some free Sticky Beak credits to get you started, so well worth giving it a go.
I'm going to start with my first biggest bugbear, which is when they obsess over consistency in creation, like consistency in creative and consistency in brand, when they're literally talking to 7 people. And yeah, for sure, Coke has to be really consistent. Pandora has to be really consistent. Like, it is so important that Pandora green is never a different green. I get it. But if you're talking to like your mum and your mates from NCT, you do not need to worry about consistency of creative. You need to worry instead about like diversity, so that you're testing and testing and testing to try and find the thing that works the best.
And just getting something out there. Because also sometimes the problem with obsessing over, is this on brand? Is this the right brand guideline? Is that you end up just not setting anything out.
On the brand that you've made on your iMac. Like, there is no brand to be on or off brand. So I think, like, it's not that I don't believe in consistency of branding, but I just think this like textbook obsession with it in the early stage is such a red flag. What's your big one that you're going to throw into the pot?
My big one I'm going to throw into the pot, I think it's probably that brands underestimate the value of content and creating good content. So everyone kind of knows they should be putting something out into the world, but they kind of really underestimate the sort of outsized returns you can get by putting out good content. And therefore they end up putting out something that's just a bit rubbish. But at least I put something out there.
Because they feel like they've got to show up.
Yeah, I've got to show up. I've got to put something on Instagram or TikTok, and I hear that's where you've got to be. So let me chuck something out there. But actually, if they just invested a bit more and put a bit more time or a bit more money into it, you know, the results are not linear. The fact is, if you have a piece of, if you have really good content and it really resonates and pops off, and then you do that, 3 times in a month, the impact of that is going to be so much bigger than posting 4 times a week that just goes nowhere.
Of course.
But I think to do that, you do have to think, okay, well, what is that content going to be? And am I the right person, or do we have the right skill set to do this? Or should I actually say, rather than putting budget across 5 different channels, I'm just going to put it all into one videographer or one great like UGC creator or whatever it might be.
Do you think it's just time and talent that makes good content?
What do you mean by time?
Well, it sounds like what you're suggesting is that they should just be like putting more time into it. But I don't think it's just man hours in equals output. And I think strategy around content is such a difficult, slippery thing.
I think strategy around content's important in the sense of, I think you should be thinking about, the type of content you're going to put out and thinking about, okay, I'm not going to do always the same thing. I'm going to try and get, to your point, this diversity of content. I think ultimately, like anything in a creative space, the idea is everything. So like a lot of the time it just comes down to, is the idea creative? Yeah. So the content doesn't need to be overly produced. It doesn't even need a really talented videographer. If the idea is really solid, then it will resonate. And all the best content, if you look at it, ultimately comes down to the idea behind this piece of content was really creative and was really interesting, or really resonated, or was clever, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, nice wines. Like, I've got to give a shout out to Jeremy, who came on this show last series, who talks so eloquently about how big their ideas have to be. Like, it's a good idea, but it has to be a really edgy, out there idea to get the outsized return. and how they've built this culture around just total expectation that every other one is going to flop beyond any expectations. Like, they're completely comfortable putting loads of time and effort into something that's not going to work, but they know it was like outlandish enough that the thing afterwards might.
Yeah, and it's outlandish enough that it might not work, but if it does, it's going to work big time.
It's going to work big
So
time.
like their one that they did where they had Travis Kelce, the lookalike,
exactly,
is a really great idea, right? And that's a creative idea. The actual execution of it is super simple.
Yeah.
Right? They dressed up the guy, put him in Sainsbury's, took a, that doesn't require any particular skills. It didn't even require any particular time to make the video. It was just about the idea. We've got this guy who looks a bit like Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift's in town. Let's make a video, as if he's gone into Sainsbury's and do it. And then also the way that the idea extends to how they then seeded it out.
Yeah.
They didn't put it on their own channel. The head of marketing put it on her channel.
Really?
And then it got picked up by that. So it felt even more organic and even more natural. And then Nice picked it up. So the idea was
clever.
everything from the Travis Kelce lookalike right through to how you seed it out.
Yeah.
And so that's, again, that's the key thing. Invest in creative ideas. And so maybe the time thing is invest the time in thinking about it. That could have been a day coming up with that, or maybe whatever it was. But give your team the space to actually come up with ideas, to actually brainstorm ideas. And like I say, give them the time, the space, and the permission to fail with ideas as well.
And invest in creativity.
Yeah.
What we're talking about here is like the importance of creative strategy.
Definitely.
Not just I guess that's what I was getting to. Like, it's not just the videographer that's going to shoot it.
No.
It's who's generating those ideas. Okay, so how much? So we're saying that brands should be spending like 50K a year on content creation.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so, definitely. And I think that's a mix of, that 50K is a mix of people. It's a mix of the actual production cost. It's a mix of the time.
Minimum.
But I think so.
Yeah.
I think if you're a brand and you've got if you're turning over, I don't know, anywhere from sort of 1 to 5 million, you should probably be spending minimum 50, maybe somewhere around 100 and up to 150. That is probably going to be your biggest marketing channel. It's going to be your biggest top of funnel awareness channel. And ultimately, as a small brand, awareness is what you're trying to do.
And it's still really high ROI. Because if you're spending that much, the impression, and you do it well, the impressions you're going to get from it are still way cheaper and way more valuable than what you'd be getting if you were just plugging that into Meta.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a huge amount of money, but actually if it's done right, it's really efficient.
Yeah. A lot of brands, a lot of companies, a lot of founders just really underestimate the value of this piece of, of this part of the marketing mix, content, social, whatever it might be. And therefore they kind of often give it to the most junior person in the team. And they just go, you're young, do the social.
You've got a phone.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't think, okay, well, that person might actually be best placed to do a lot of the bits, but someone needs to be a little bit more strategic and actually bring that creative thing in.
Yeah.
That's not to say that person couldn't also be junior, but don't assume that just because that person is 23 and has a phone, that they're going to know how to really come up with great ideas. So don't undervalue that and just think it's a channel that, isn't worth investing in. So that's kind of, I guess, both a bugbear of mine and a mistake I think we see a lot.
So this is like a nice segue. I find it so frustrating that founders turn up to the world of business with this list of channels that they just have to show up on. So you have to send emails, you have to have an SMS thing, you have to be on Instagram, you now have to be on TikTok, you should probably be on LinkedIn as well. And Julia Kessler, founder of Hickson, years ago, I was doing a big strategy presentation for her and she said to me, why are we on Instagram? Why shouldn't we turn off Instagram? And it's like, I'm not lost for words often. And it was a rare moment where I was like, oh, I mean, no one has ever... Great question.
Yeah.
And, and then I kind of went into like, well, because I think it's efficient and the potential for impressions. And actually, I think in hindsight, she was spot on, which was, we don't have the resource to do this. And yet we're doing these things because we feel like we should. And so that was the right question. But can we think of an example of a brand that's come to us and said, I don't have Instagram yet because I'm not ready for it? But
no.
How wild would that be?
Yeah. I'm still impressed if I go onto a brand's webpage, onto their website, sorry, and I scroll down to where the social icons are and they've decided to only go on one platform. Yeah. I'm like, I like this brand because they haven't decided they need to be on, X, Facebook, Pinterest, everything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's good if they have the boldness to say, I'm okay with just being on one platform. Choose the platform that makes most sense for you. And it might not even be a visual platform, right? You and I are big fans of LinkedIn, and that might be the platform to go. I think, and don't just think that's a personal brand thing, although it kind of mostly is. Surreal have built a very good business on LinkedIn,
Absolutely.
because they kind of knew that probably a lot of their audience who are buying £6 boxes of protein cereal are going to be spending a lot of time on LinkedIn. They're probably in, professional jobs where that's where they kind of spend, and that's their platform of choice to hang out. It doesn't mean that's the only one they're using, but you can, you don't have to be thinking, oh, I've got to be on like the hottest new platform.
And they've worked out that the algorithm on LinkedIn is still way friendlier than anywhere else.
Yeah.
The question is whether organic reach, so, Surreal, you're right, have like destroyed LinkedIn. Incredible organic reach. If we had a pound for every time we were asked, like, can you get me Surreal reach? We'd be very rich people. But there's an assumption that reach always converts into sales. And we've seen some like impressive D2C stats for Surreal. We've heard anecdotally like challenges with their rollout into retail. And I'm sure there's loads of other examples of that. I guess this actually like leads me on to another thing that drives me mad is lack of focus on the product proposition and like a seeming disregard for whether anyone actually wants what you're selling.
Yes.
Like a really bizarre kind of irreverence to like, oh, the market being tiny. Like, oh, that's just a little thing. But like, look at my organic reach.
Yeah.
And I think, marketing comes back to like, is the customer insight clear enough? And if you built something that someone's going to want to buy, and that just doesn't necessarily get enough airtime or focus.
Yeah, although we do often talk about the importance of niching down, don't we? And particularly when you're in the earlier stages. So how do you kind of square that in terms of, at the moment, there isn't that much. I am a niche product for a niche audience.
So I think there's a real difference between going after everyone from day one and knowing who your early adopters are going to be and being really confident that your early adopters are obsessed with you, but knowing in the back of your head that when you decide to go there, there's a bigger market.
Yeah,
That's about activating in stages. And again, that's like...
Well, going back to that point of like another mistake we see.
Exactly.
Who's your audience? It's women from the ages of 18 to 65. And I think, and also, so, that's the classic kind of we're for everyone.
Yes.
There's also that, thing of, or going back to, we are only for men between 18 and 34, and only looking at demographically and not psychographically.
Yes.
Which I think is something that we don't talk about like that much, but a 45-year-old man and a 25-year-old man can have very similar interests, but on paper look very different.
Yeah, well, King Charles and Ozzy Osbourne are exactly the same demographic profile. You put them on a slide next to each other, they're the same age, they're both Caucasian, and yet clearly their taste is so different. Yes, and which we've wanged on about in this podcast before, everyone having the same target market. There's only so much Sophie from Clapham can buy. Yeah. She doesn't have that much disposable income.
There aren't that many shops in Clapham.
Yeah, exactly. The market is quite small. So yes, like hugely missing a behavioural segmentation, but also just missing like what brand is interested in women over 50? There are loads of them. They're really rich. Like the ageism and this like only marketing to people who look and feel a bit like us in this London bubble is just such a massive mistake. But that aside, I just get so frustrated with brands who don't really know that anyone wants their product and haven't thought about how to articulate that to them. So it might be quite a good idea, but when brands will sort of say to us like, well, we're just going to see where it sticks in the market. It's like, well, the answer to that is nowhere.
Yeah.
You've got to have a really good positioning and a really good bit of copy that tells one person why you're right for them.
I think linked to that is not spending enough time or giving enough attention to the product quality itself. So I think we've worked with a couple of brands where, we did some good marketing for them, and the product looked nice and everything, but actually the retention was so terrible because the product wasn't very good. And I think when you're a founder or when you're working with a founder-led brand, sometimes it's quite hard to get to the reality that maybe the product isn't that good.
Yeah.
So there's an element of, some of the best businesses are built by people who have no emotional investment in the product.
Yeah.
because they just know, okay, why are people not coming back to order again? Okay, the product's not great. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's reformulate. Let's make sure that we're not setting on.
And the best founders we've worked with, who we're delivering the fastest growth for, have done that.
Yeah.
Have taken the feedback on board and gone, right, totally hear you. Give me 2 months.
Yeah.
And come back and given us a product that's like refined in line with customer insight. And it's so obvious in the data.
But I think it's really hard to do as a founder. I think you have this vision, particularly if it's a product-led business, but to be honest, with any kind of business, you've got a vision of what you wanted to put out into the world and you've slogged to get to market. You've got to remember that like getting to market, there's a whole period of time before that. And in that period of time where you're coming up with the idea, you're making it a reality, you're building it, you're getting it out into the world in whatever capacity that takes, and then it hits the world, you're so emotionally invested in that. And then to have to go, oh, this might not even be right. To then have the kind of, I don't know what it is, it's the confidence, almost the sort of the mental maturity to go, okay, I'm just going to go back and reformulate and change things and tweak and that sort of thing. Now, the best founders do, like you say, and the best products across the board from, consumer products through to SaaS products, whatever, they are iterative. And that's what they should be.
That actually no one survives that doesn't have that ethos.
Yes.
And I don't know the data.
No, 100%,
but
yeah.
There are not examples. I'm waiting for someone to slide into my DMs and tell me how wrong I am. There are not examples of businesses that have grown successfully without many, many iterations. Like the chances of landing the thing that your customer most wants straight off the bat without refinement, I think is just so needle in a haystack that actually founders need to go in like with such a strong view that my brand is V1, my product is V1, my messaging is V1, and I'm going to do that as insight-led as possible, but I know it's going to change.
Which is why I think the tech world has it much better than the consumer world.
Because they don't have lead times.
They don't have such big lead times, absolutely. They don't have to tie up loads of money in stock. And I think the MVP model and the lean startup model is a great way to build. It is a lot harder to do when you're trying to release, a new protein shake.
Or a hotel.
Not a hotel, exactly.
Just to give you
a
restaurant chain.
Yeah, exactly. Not having enough flexibility to know that you are going to have to iterate, but also not understanding the importance of product in terms of the quality, making sure it is really, really good. So, you talk about the 5 Ps, product being one of them.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, people will buy a bad product once, but they won't buy it twice.
We get some slightly mad calls from people who have very lean marketing teams doing 1,000,001 jobs. And I think maybe this is like the career thing I'm going to nail my colours to. Like my quest is to protect the overstretched marketing manager who is in a business reporting straight into a founder who has no marketing training and will say they have no marketing training, but will still then have no other marketing expertise around them. So it's like there's this self-awareness, but then yet no solution to that self-awareness.
Yes.
But I find, I kind of respect the fact that you know that about yourself, but why aren't you doing anything about that? And those poor marketing managers who are asked to be as good a content creator as they are performance marketing manager, as they are comm strategist. And that is a symptom of this industry being way too big. And I don't, Brand Hackers is a loose attempt to try and fix it. Upworld is a loose attempt to try and support people in those positions. I'm having a sort of pathetic go on lots of different fronts, but it doesn't change the problem that businesses just overstack one person and squidge everything into their roles.
So there is definitely still a role for generalists. You agree? But how would you define generalists in this, in the marketing world? Or is there not a role for generalists?
I think I really struggle with defining the role of a generalist marketeer. There might be a generalist brand marketeer or a generalist growth marketeer, but I think the left brain, right brain divide across the breadth of marketing roles is too extreme for a single generalist to really thrive. And that's been our journey. Back in the day, Brand Hackers was some generalist marketing managers, and we've evolved into real specialists because we found that those generalist roles got so stretched.
Yeah, and we weren't able to actually do justice to the things that we're, going back to what we're talking about.
Exactly.
People should invest in content or don't give it to someone who's not a content creator, for example. So I think, like I say, the poor marketing manager who is getting tasked with everything is a classic. And it's an easy mistake to make, because I guess as a founder you think, I need to market this brand and I can't afford to hire a whole team, but I want to try all these different channels.
Well, I did it with finance. I went, I need finance because I believe that that's part of this business, so I'll hire a finance manager with no knowledge of all the jobs that were in a finance manager role. And so I completely get it. I don't say that with any like judgment of anyone, but I do wish they let us give them some advice.
Yeah.
We've done quite a lot of it.
That would be nice. Yeah.
What do we think is our biggest? How can we rank these?
I think the biggest has got to be the sort of the trying to do everything.
Yeah.
Because it covers a few things.
That's really the
Because it covers what it covers the bit around being a generalist marketer. You're trying to get them to do everything. It covers the brand is trying to do everything, try and be on every channel.
Yeah.
It covers I'm trying to be everything to everyone.
Yes.
It's kind of like just narrow down a little bit.
It's a beautiful cop-out, because what we've done here is
Yeah.
wrap all of them in a really nice bow.
Yeah.
But I think, everything that irks us is under the guise of trying to do everything.
Maybe it's not being strategic.
Yeah, which comes from fear and overwhelm and like a fear of missing out. And I get all of the things that drive it. But all of the businesses that we admire have been really focused.
Yeah.
That was a great chat. I think we put the world to rights there.
I think so.
And
Marketing's
maybe
fixed.
marketing's fixed. Done.
Thank you so much for listening. I really hope you enjoy our conversation, and we're so open to feedback about this stuff. Please do follow so that you can stay in touch with the Marketing Hustle and what's coming next. In the future, we're going to be exploring with more different formats. So I'm thinking about case studies with marketing directors. There's going to be some interviews with me, which I'm feeling weird about, but let's see how that goes. And I'll be getting more founders on for a chat. So please do stay in touch and you can be part of the ride.